Hey guys, it's Rocky from We Learn Chess, back with another video. And in addition to the series on the Italian game that I just started, I want to try to learn for myself better how to play against queen pawn openings, because I feel like I really struggle with them. I'd like to play the Nimzo Indian, so something like this, something like this here. And when you get this opening, I feel like I fare pretty well in a lot of lines. Some lines I have a little more trouble with, but I feel pretty comfortable playing these positions. What I'm very uncomfortable with is I've never really learned how to play double queen pawn openings, and I feel like I should learn this. I mean, this has got to be what you should learn first before you start learning the Nimzo stuff, but I'm weird like that. Like I tried to find like some kind of funkier approaches against openings and learn them first. But I really need to learn this stuff. So as I study this stuff, I'll share with you guys some things that I learn. And today I learned something really interesting in a London system game. I just played this game on chess.com. I was going to record it. I started to, but I'm such a patzer. I make some really dumb comments in Live Blitz, and I feel like it's more informative to see just some solutions in some particular positions rather than me bumbling through an entire game. Okay, so in the game, we didn't get this at all. Let me reload this PGN. I had the black pieces. It was a 10-0 game on chess.com, and we get this immediate bishop out, which is the London system, and I find it really annoying to play against, especially annoying because white gets this really great bishop on this diagonal for the entire game. So annoying, and it's so solid for white. Even though he's kind of farting around here on the queen side, I can't really find a way to punish him too much. There's a couple things. I'm not going to look too much at this, but I do want to say that the computer likes c5 here immediately, and I'm going to start looking at this very seriously as a method of playing. I played d5 in the game. We'll look at that in a moment. But just to quickly show that if white takes this, because this is really what I know what to do, you can just develop. And, okay, you're threatening to play e5 and take this pawn, so I mean, like, if white tries to hold on to it, like this, because the knight's got the square, so he can't play b4 right away. Again, you've got this move, and if he tries to do something really awkward, like hold on to this pawn, then you can go after this bishop. And, I mean, the entire purpose of this opening for black was to get the bishop outside the pawn chain and not trade it for this knight. So he's failed in that. And, okay, this pawn's covered at the moment, but the computer just wants to sack it and get like a beautiful center. Or you can sack it like this, something like this, where you've got like a little lead in development. I mean, even something like this, where it looks like white's getting a tempo, but oops, you're threatening mate in one, so, and you've got two pieces on the square, so at the very least you're winning an exchange now. And your development's pretty good, so, holding on to the pawn's not a good idea. And I don't really think that you'll see people try to do that. I mean, I think you'll see people sometimes take it, but I don't think you'll see people desperately try to hold on to it. They'll probably learn that that's not good, especially if they've played Queen's Pawns openings themselves, and maybe before they got into the London system, they were playing the Queen's Gambit, and realized that as white, when black tries to hold on to the Queen's Gambit, accept it, they can get into a lot of trouble. This is kind of a reversed version of that. If white were to try to hold on to the pawn. You can always check and pick it up this way, but for some reason the computer doesn't like that. I didn't look deep enough to really understand why. I think probably you would just see like either e3 or e4. Well, e4 you can't play right away, so here, yeah, here I just feel like black should be totally fine, right? You're probably going to get d4 in and have a nice little center, castle, lead in development. Looks pretty good. I like c5. I'm going to start playing it immediately. I don't know what to do if white pushes, actually. I guess you stop the pawn and then try to deal with it. That looks a little more annoying. I'll probably have to study that first before I start playing it. But okay, in the game I played d5, and then I'm going to play c5. I forget which one's recommended by Christoph in his videos. I think he recommends the immediate c5, but I can't remember. Christoph Selecki on the Chess Explained channel. He has 3 videos on how to play against the London system. I suggest that you check them out. I'll link to them in the blog post on the blog on WeLearnChess.com. Okay, so I played c5 now, and the idea is just that you hit this pawn because the bishop has left its home, and I was surprised that Stockfish actually puts this as the second best move. It seems kind of awkward, and it seems like you wouldn't want to move pawns on the queen side because white eventually is going to get his bishop out, play e6. He'll have his pawns on light squares, and his pawns, not so much that they're on light squares, they're pointing towards the queen side. Most of his pieces are over here on the queen side, so probably black's going to play on the queen side. And probably what he wants to do is create some pawn weaknesses, and then try to attack the loose pawns that are left, almost like white does in a minority attack, but this is just, I guess it's not a minority attack, but just sort of creating weaknesses. I'm not very good at this kind of play. It's something in my game that's weak and I have to improve on, so I'll be looking to try to practice that a little more. But yeah, I just thought that b3 could kind of help black do those things. The other thing that b3 does is it opens up this diagonal, and the c1 bishop's no longer there to stay on this diagonal, so this rook can be open to some tactics, and we'll see a couple lines coming up. White does have to be careful because I just developed here, for example. I also thought about taking this pawn immediately so that white would have to exchange a center pawn for a flank pawn, kind of like in the Sicilian. And I was kind of annoyed at myself that I let him play c3, because now if I take back, he could take with the c3 pawn. So I didn't take it, I just developed my bishop. But the purpose of this video is to show you a particular position that I think is very easy to get. It's very easy to get this position right here. Now, this h3 move that white inserted, some people do that, some people don't. I've seen a lot of people do this who play the London system, because if black ever plays knight h5 to hit this bishop, he wants to be able to drop it back. And I know, like, John Bartholomew has mentioned in a video or two with some London system videos where either he was playing with it or against it, where although he doesn't usually recommend pawn moves in the opening, especially flank pawn moves, this one at least has a purpose. He wants to be able to hide the bishop. Or sometimes John will play lines where he's got a light square bishop as black in these queen's pawn games when he plays his Slavs, and he likes to play h6 and give his light square bishop a retreat. Wouldn't be retreating from there, obviously. So again, a flank pawn move, but one with a purpose. However, it does lose time, and you see here that white's pieces on the king side are totally sleeping. And for that reason, I should have been more aware in trying to find ways to look for tactics, but as you'll see, these are going to be really hard to see. So if we just really quickly replay how we got here. Common move, common move. If people play the London system, they'll play that. Common move, perhaps not right away, but in the first 4 or 5 moves you might see it. c5, e3, queen b6 hitting here, and now in this particular situation I think, okay, you will probably see b3. I think computer likes something else a little bit better, I can't remember what. But yeah, this is common. So now this diagonal's weakened, and you can just develop, and now you've got some pieces out as black. So it's very possible that you can get this position against a London system player if you play these moves. And now I've seen a lot of people do this where, again, they want to protect, they want to take back with their outside pawns. They don't lose a center pawn for a flank pawn. So I just kind of thought, well, man, this pawn is totally overprotected. What am I going to do about that? I don't see how taking gains me anything, so I just developed my bishop. As it turns out, you can take this pawn for free. And this is absolutely amazing to me. I mean, I just could not believe when I saw the analysis that white cannot take this pawn back. I mean, you can take back with 2 pawns, have a nice pawn chain. What's the problem? Problem is that white is not developed at all. He's been farting around. And I just love that you can punish this. So I'm really glad that I looked at this analysis. And if you like to play with the initiative, and you're kind of annoyed by these like slow queen pawn openings that your opponent plays, well, probably you want to look for more aggressive lines anyway, like that early c5, but you're probably going to like how white gets punished if he tries to take this pawn back. And I think almost, at least at my level, I think almost everybody would play c-takes, because that was the reason, right, for playing c3. At least I think that's the way they'll see it. As it turns out, this is like a 1.5 pawn advantage for black if you play the right moves. Really deep tactical stuff. Moves e5. Now the principle here, I guess, is just that like striking in the center when you're ahead in development. Opening lines in the center is usually going to favor the person who's better develops. Now, I am 2 moves away from castling, but one of my moves is probably going to come with tempo, which I didn't think about. I didn't think about this at all, so I mean, I can't even say that. I didn't think about this at all. So I'm kind of one move away from castling. And here, I mean, you are threatening to just kind of open up white center, take this, maybe get castle and get a rook over to the e file. So I feel like black shouldn't like just let you take that pawn. And so I think most players would capture back here. I mean, I think this is very likely. I don't think too many people will capture with the bishop because they made effort. They made 2 moves here to try to get the bishop to safety and not trade it for a knight. But just for the sake of completeness, let's look at it. Takes, the knight's hit. Here's what I was talking about, the check first. Play the check first. And now, knight e4. And already we've got pressure. Knight f3 is probably the only real logical way to hold on to that. And now you've got the same theme, just we looked at before. It looked like we couldn't take the pawn because it was overprotected. It looked like we couldn't take on e5 because it was totally protected. And now it looks like we can't play d4 because that's protected. Well, at least this one you can kind of see how you would... Oh, that's totally protected too. You can't even take back if he takes, right? But that's the correct move. And you're threatening to just take this, takes with the queen, and your queen is infiltrating, and you've got tons of attack coming, so probably they have to take it. Takes, and now you would want to take. You're going to take once here on d2. The bishop check's more forcing, but then I don't know if that works. Yeah, I think probably you have to take here. Takes. Yeah, and now you've got 2. You've still got pressure on this, and probably white is going to have to. I mean, okay, he could probably play his own check here. You don't really want to block this check because something like this, and you lose your extra pressure in the corner here, and you also kind of had an eye here. You have one less piece on the board. I mean, you still can't castle, but I don't think you want to get rid of piece. Probably you would want to keep the pieces on the board, even though that looks really ugly. I'm pretty sure if I look at Stockfish, it'll tell me to play this. It's always doing those stupid moves. Or they're not stupid, I guess. But okay, probably he would play rook c1, obviously. Rook c1 here to get out of the eye of the queen. And here, I mean, probably just develop and keep an eye on the square because this rook is the only other piece that can protect this this knight. And with black, you're going to be able to manually castle. Also, you're going to get a rook over to d8 real fast. And what's he going to do about this piece? Plus, you have the bishop pair. And you can't ever really go here, right? Because if you go here, you can take this with check. And something like this. Okay, you can't take this bishop because of the check here, and you lose your queen. But you can play this check here. And something like this. Yeah. Yeah, check. This is it. The queen is pinned, so I have to take with the king, check, and then you're checkmating him, so that doesn't work for white. So there's probably something else white can do, but I don't think any of it's going to be... Probably I'd have to play a king f8 or something like that. But then again, potentially he's losing this piece. And actually, you could take it, because if he takes back... Yeah, like something like this, for example. If he goes here, then you can take this. Takes, and now you can take. Because now this rook is pinned, first of all, and he doesn't have that tactic with the check. So, yeah, the tactics all work in your favor, and that's just how it should be if you're better developed and your opponent's been messing around with pawn moves the whole opening. So, but again, I don't think people will take with the bishop here, because they'll want to keep that bishop. So I think they will, most people will take the pawn, be like, what the heck? I'm hitting this. This pawn's protected, you can't take it back. But again, you get this check, same thing, knight e4. And here, this is a little tougher to see, and unfortunately it's probably it's messier, but it's also probably the more likely. Computer wants to play with g5. And, okay, the knight doesn't want to move because you've got the 2 pieces here. If the bishop takes, then you've got this phenomenal move, knight takes here. Again, exploiting the idea that this knight really can't move. Computer wants to take it anyway, just to try to get some material here. And, takes, and then, for example, king here to not lose the queen. You could already fork, but you're going to lose 3 minors for the queen. So the computer wants to first do this cold-blooded, just forking with the pawn fork here, and still keeping these threats alive. So this is a long, messy version, but it's probably the most likely line, I think, because I think most people will be tempted to take with c3 here, and I also think most people would take with the pawn here. So probably this is the line that you'll see. And you have to remember, play the check first, put him in the pin, add up the pressure, play this crazy move g5, and then you get this move here. And I mean, this is just so long, and no wonder you can't see this. Like, for most players, no wonder you can't see that there's tactics here. I mean, it just looks like, even though white has made a lot of pawn moves, it doesn't look like there should be any problems here. But yeah, I was absolutely amazed. And okay, I'll be really quick about this, but if white were to take the other way, similar stuff would happen. You still play e5, and again, he's probably not going to take with the bishop, but takes here, and now you don't have this check, but you do have this here. You're hitting this, and if he plays bishop back to e3, which I think a lot of people would do, you play bishop c5, and he can't really even take this because you're hitting this. You've got two pieces here, and if the queen tries to go anywhere, like let's say f3 to protect these squares, you've got this at the very least. The computer even wanted to just castle first, which is hilarious, and then play that. And where else is it going to go? I mean, you can go here, I guess. Yeah, you're still you're hitting c3 twice. That's the problem with it not being on f3. So here you could probably take it right away. You could probably develop. You could probably castle. It's probably all good. Plays the knight out, kind of protecting this pawn, but still you have taking here. You're hitting the queen. Yeah, that's why you play bishop f5 first, because now you got two pieces on the square, and if he takes this, obviously you're getting the check. I mean, the tactics are all working out in your favor, and so that means he can't really take this. And if he can't take it, what's he going to do? I mean, again, moving the queen out to one of these squares is a little bit vulnerable, as we've seen. So if he tries to protect this bishop with the queen here, the queen also kind of looking at c3, this is still pretty bad. I mean, my sound just went away here. I don't know what happened. But anyway, this still looks pretty bad. And again, we see this tactic where it just looks really funny, but you can actually play d4 here. Again, continuing with the theme of opening lines in the center. So if you're the more developed side, the better developed side, opening lines in the center should help you. And if takes, obviously you can take a number of times here. It's, you're hitting this. Even if you were to have the knight out before this, on the square, you'd still be able to do it because your queen would end up there and you'd be forking this and this. I don't know how that would happen. Let's see. Okay, for example, we did this, and let's say we developed first or we castled first. Let's say we castle first, and he gets a knight out here, so adding some pressure there. And now we play d4, then we would see something like this where you could take, and I only show this line because I wanted to show that how the queen hits both f2 and also hits the rook in the corner, and I don't even think white can protect that rook and deal with all the other threats at the same time. So yeah, this is even worse than the last variation. So, and there's one fewer piece on the board, but now you just see like white's lack of development is highlighted here, I think perhaps more than any other position that we saw. So I just want to show that last one. Alright, so you can play around with that on your own time, but if you get the London system and you get this b3 c3, that should be a red flag for you, and you can take this, and then from there try to remember and figure out the tactics. If you can't remember, try to figure them out, but with confidence that with your lead in development and with potential checks here and development with your knights into the center, that you're going to get a massive attack. So yeah, I hope you liked that, and I'll see you around for future videos with patterns in common openings.